The cold metal of my wedding ring caught the jeweler's light, and in that moment, I saw 40 years of my life shatter like glass. "Ma'am," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the boutique's soft music. "This is one of the most valuable antique rings I've ever appraised. It's worth at least $175,000. My daughter Amanda's laugh from 20 minutes earlier echoed in my mind. "Mom, that's not even real gold. Just sell it already." The same daughter who had been slowly emptying my bank accounts for months. I stood frozen in the elegant jewelry store in downtown Boston, trying to process what the jeweler had just told me. My hands trembled as I stared at the ring I'd almost given away for a fraction of its value, at my own daughter's insistence. The same daughter who had convinced me to sign over my house to her name, for tax purposes, after Henry died. The same daughter who told me I was becoming forgetful, that I needed her to manage my finances. The same daughter who had been gradually selling my possessions while I grieved the loss of my husband. "Mrs. Wilson, are you all right?" The jeweler, Mr. Abernathy according to his name tag, leaned forward with concern in his eyes. I couldn't speak. How could I tell this stranger that my own flesh and blood had been systematically stripping me of everything I owned, that she'd told me this ring, the last gift from my late husband, was worthless costume jewelry, and I should just get rid of it? I need to sit down, I managed to say, grateful when Mr. Abernathy quickly guided me to a plush chair in the corner of his shop. He offered me water, which I accepted with shaking hands. Through the large windows, I could see people walking by on Newbury Street, going about their normal lives. How I envied them. My world was crumbling around me for the second time in 18 months. "The ring has been authenticated," Mr. Abernathy continued, sitting across from me. "It's a rare Victorian-era piece with a unique setting. The diamonds are exceptional quality, and the craftsmanship is museum-worthy. May I ask how you acquired it? How I acquired it?" The question sent me spiraling back to that Christmas morning 5 years ago, when Henry had presented me with the small velvet box. "For our 35th anniversary," he'd said with that smile that still made my heart skip after decades together. "It belonged to my grandmother, and her grandmother before that. Family legend says it once belonged to European nobility. I'd thought it was just a romantic story he'd made up. Henry had always been a wonderful storyteller, spinning tales for our children when they were young, creating magical worlds for them at bedtime. I never imagined the ring actually had such value, and neither, apparently, had Amanda. It was my husband's family heirloom," I said quietly. "He passed away last year." Mr. Abernathy's eyes softened. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mrs. Wilson." I nodded, unable to speak for a moment as grief washed over me again. Henry had been my rock for 42 years. Without him, I'd been lost, vulnerable. The perfect target for what I was now realizing was my daughter's calculated betrayal. "Would you like me to put the ring in our safe while you consider your options?" Mr. Abernathy asked gently. "No," I said, suddenly feeling protective of this last connection to Henry. "No, thank you. I'll keep it with me." I slipped it back onto my finger, where it had resided for 5 years, its weight now feeling different, significant. As I left the jewelry store, stepping into the crisp autumn air of Boston, my mind raced. How long had Amanda been lying to me? What else had she taken? What else had she been planning to take? The quaint brownstones and upscale shops of Newbury Street seemed to close in around me as I walked, barely seeing where I was going. My phone buzzed in my purse. Amanda. Again. The third time she'd called since I'd left the house this morning. I let it go to voicemail, something I'd never done before with my daughter. But she wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was someone I no longer recognized. I found myself in the public garden, sitting on a bench near the swan boats, watching families pass by. Young mothers with strollers, fathers hoisting toddlers onto their shoulders. Once, that had been Henry and me with Amanda and her brother Michael. Where had that sweet little girl gone? The one who made me Mother's Day cards with glitter and brought me dandelions from the yard? How had she transformed into someone who could look me in the eye and tell me that a $175,000 ring was worthless junk? My phone buzzed again. A text this time. "Amanda, where are you? I've been calling. Did you sell that old ring yet? I found a buyer for the china cabinet, too. Call me back." I stared at her words, seeing them in a completely new light. The buyer for the cabinet. Was that even true? Or was she selling my possessions and keeping the money? How deep did this deception go? Another message appeared. "Amanda, Mom, are you ignoring me?" Are you having one of your episodes again? Do I need to come find you? My episodes. Another of her inventions, I was beginning to suspect. I'd never had memory problems until Amanda started telling everyone I did, until she started moving things in my house, and then claiming I'd misplaced them, until she started suggesting I was too fragile to live alone, to manage my own affairs. I turned my phone off completely, something I'd never dared to do before. Amanda had convinced me I needed to be reachable at all times, in case of emergency, but the only emergency was my own blindness to what had been happening right under my nose. As the afternoon light began to fade, casting long shadows across the garden, I made a decision. I would not confront Amanda. Not yet. First, I needed to understand the full scope of what she'd done. And then, though I could barely bring myself to think it, I would need to protect myself from my own daughter. My name is Eleanor Wilson, Ellie to the few friends I have left. I'm 67 years old, and until 18 months ago, I thought I had a good life. A life I'd built carefully with Henry over 4 decades of marriage, raising 2 children in our modest but comfortable colonial in Winchester, a suburb just north of Boston. Henry was a high school history teacher, beloved by generations of students. I worked part-time as a librarian while the kids were growing up, then full-time until my retirement 5 years ago. We weren't wealthy, but we were careful with money. We paid off our mortgage, saved for retirement, helped both kids through college. We did everything right, or so I thought. Then came the diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, already stage 4, by the time Henry's back pain drove him to the doctor. 6 months, they gave us. We got 8. 8 months of watching my strong, vibrant husband wither away, his mind still sharp as ever even as his body betrayed him. 8 months of hospital visits, of medications that made him sick but didn't stop the cancer, of hospice nurses coming and going from our home. 8 months of Amanda and Michael taking turns visiting, helping when they could. Michael lives in Seattle with his wife and 3 children. He came east twice during Henry's illness, staying for a week each time, helping me navigate the medical maze, sitting with his father, having those important final conversations. He wanted us to come stay with them in Seattle, but Henry wanted to die at home, in our bed, looking out at the maple tree he'd planted when we first moved in. Amanda lives just 30 minutes away in Cambridge. She's divorced, no children, works in pharmaceutical sales. She was here more often, naturally, dropping by several times a week. I was grateful for her presence, her help with errands and appointments. When Henry died, she was the one who helped me plan the funeral, who stayed with me that first terrible week when I couldn't imagine how to keep breathing without him. "You don't have to do this alone, Mom," she told me, sitting at my kitchen table a month after we buried Henry. "Let me help you." How easily those words ensnared me. Let me help you. What mother doesn't want to believe in her child's goodness? What widow doesn't need help navigating her suddenly solitary existence? It started small. Amanda suggested I add her to my bank accounts, in case of emergency. She offered to help sort through Henry's belongings, to handle donating what I didn't want to keep. She began checking my mail, paying my bills, managing my finances. "You don't need to worry about this right now, Mom," she'd say, taking the envelopes from my hands. Focus on healing. I was too numb with grief to question her, too grateful not to have to think about mundane details when I could barely get out of bed each morning. By the time the fog of initial grief began to lift, 6 months had passed, and Amanda had embedded herself deeply in every aspect of my life. She started noticing things I didn't, keys I'd supposedly misplaced, appointments I'd supposedly forgotten, conversations we'd supposedly had that I couldn't recall. "Mom, we talked about this yesterday," she'd say, her voice laced with concern that seemed genuine at the time. "Don't you remember?" And I didn't remember, but grief does strange things to the mind. I began to doubt myself, to wonder if I was indeed becoming forgetful. Amanda suggested I see a doctor, who prescribed anti-anxiety medication that left me fuzzy and even more dependent on her. "It's not safe for you to drive while adjusting to the medication," she told me, taking my car keys. "I'll take you wherever you need to go." Another freedom gone. Another tie cut between me and the outside world. The house came next. "Mom, the property taxes are killing you," she said one evening, as we sat in the living room where I'd spent 4 decades of my life. "And the maintenance is too much for you to handle alone." "I can manage," I insisted. "The mortgage is paid off. I have my pension and Henry's life insurance. But you're rattling around in this big house all alone, she countered. It's not good for you. Besides, there are tax advantages if you transfer the property now. You can still live here, of course, but it would be in my name. I hesitated, and she pressed on. Dad would want us to be practical, wouldn't he? He'd want me to take care of you. Henry. My practical, careful Henry who kept every receipt, who researched every purchase. What would he have said? I wasn't sure anymore. Grief had stolen not just my husband, but my confidence in my own judgment. I'll think about it, I said. 2 weeks later, I signed the papers. My home of 40 years was now Amanda's property, with a life estate for me, a legal term I didn't fully understand, but which Amanda assured me meant I could live there as long as I wanted. And then, piece by piece, my home began to change. The antique secretary desk that had been Henry's pride sold because it was taking up too much space. My grandmother's china, packed away because you never use it anyway, Mom. Family photos, rearranged or removed because we're freshening up the place. Each change was small enough that I questioned my own reaction. Was I being too sentimental, too resistant to necessary change? Was Amanda right that I needed to move on? I'd never had to make these kinds of decisions without Henry. We'd always decided things together. Michael called weekly from Seattle, his face on the screen of the iPad Amanda had set up for me. But our conversations were often with Amanda hovering nearby, and gradually, I stopped mentioning my concerns. What could he do from across the country anyway? Besides, Amanda was here, helping me, sacrificing her time for me. How could I complain about that? My world shrank to the rooms of my house, no longer truly mine, and the places Amanda took me, the doctor's office, the grocery store, occasionally a restaurant. My friends from the library called less and less as I turned down invitations, too tired or too medicated to socialize. The neighbors still waved, but they stopped coming by for coffee. I told myself it was natural, part of aging, part of being a widow. Until that day at the jewelry store, when a stranger's words shattered the careful illusion Amanda had built around me, and I began to see the prison my life had become. The day after my visit to the jewelry store, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The fog of grief and medication had lifted, burned away by the scorching realization of Amanda's betrayal. I lay in bed, watching morning light filter through the curtains Henry and I had chosen together, and I made a plan. First, I needed proof. Accusations without evidence would get me nowhere, especially given how carefully Amanda had cultivated the image of a devoted daughter caring for her increasingly confused mother. I needed to see exactly what she had been doing with my finances, my possessions, my life. I waited until I heard her car pull into the driveway that evening. She came twice a week to check on me and help with errands, or, as I now suspected, to continue her methodical pillaging of my life. "Hi, Mom," she called, using her key to enter without knocking. Another small indignity I'd grown accustomed to. "How are you feeling today?" I was sitting in the living room, a novel open on my lap, though I hadn't read a word. I'd spent the day taking inventory of what was missing from my home, making notes in a small journal I'd hidden in my knitting basket. "I'm fine, dear," I said, smiling as I'd practiced in the mirror, just a little tired. She frowned, coming to feel my forehead as if I were a child. "You look pale. Did you take your medication today?" "Yes, of course." A lie. I'd flushed the pills down the toilet that morning, determined to reclaim my mind. "Good. Have you eaten?" "I brought some of that soup you like from Panera." Always the attentive daughter, always making sure I was seen as dependent, fragile. I accepted the soup with thanks, playing my part. "Oh," she said, setting down her purse on the side table where I used to keep my favorite family photo. "Now gone. Did you get to the jewelry store yesterday?" I tried calling. My phone battery died. I lied smoothly. "And no, I didn't make it. Maybe next week." Was that relief that flashed across her face? "No rush," she said. "That old ring isn't going anywhere." While she busied herself in the kitchen, I watched her surreptitiously. My daughter. My beautiful, accomplished daughter with her perfect makeup and designer clothes. When had she become a stranger? When had she started seeing me as an obstacle rather than a mother? "Amanda," I said carefully as she returned with the soup in one of my remaining bowls. "I was thinking about some of the paperwork for the house. Do you have copies here? I'd like to review them." She paused, just for a moment, before her smile returned. Of course, but why? Is something bothering you? No. I just realized I don't have copies for myself, and I shouldn't I? I suppose, she said slowly. They're probably in my files at home. I'll bring them next time. I nodded, knowing she never would. That would be great. Thank you. After dinner, while Amanda loaded the dishwasher, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Instead, I slipped into what had once been Henry's study, now Amanda's home office when she visited. The desk drawers were locked, of course, but I knew where the key was hidden. Henry always kept a spare taped under the center drawer. My fingers trembled as I retrieved the key and opened the main drawer. Inside were neatly labeled folders. My hands went first to the one marked Eleanor Financial. With my heart pounding, I quickly took photos of several documents using the phone Amanda insisted I have for emergencies. What I saw made my blood run cold. Bank statements showing systematic withdrawals, investment accounts being slowly liquidated, a power of attorney document I had no memory of signing, yet there was my signature, looking slightly off but recognizable. I heard the water shut off in the kitchen and hastily relocked the drawer, returning the key to its hiding place. By the time Amanda looked in on me, I was back in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face to hide the shock of what I'd discovered. "Everything okay, Mom?" she called through the door. "Fine, dear, just washing up." That night, after Amanda left with promises to return in a few days, I sat alone in my bedroom with the evidence I'd gathered. The financial documents showed a pattern that was undeniable. Over the past year, nearly $200,000 had disappeared from my accounts. Money from Henry's life insurance, from our retirement savings, from investments we'd carefully nurtured for decades. And there was more. Emails on her tablet, which she'd left open on the desk, showed correspondence with auction houses and antique dealers. Photos of my missing furniture, my art, even Henry's prized collection of vintage maps. All sold, the proceeds going to accounts in Amanda's name. I felt physically ill, running to the bathroom to vomit as the full scale of the betrayal hit me. My own daughter, my own flesh and blood. The little girl who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms, who cried when her goldfish died, who danced with her father at her wedding while I dabbed tears from my eyes. How had we come to this? I thought about calling Michael, but what could I say? "Your sister is stealing everything we own?" He'd want proof, explanations, and Amanda would undoubtedly paint me as confused, possibly even mentally ill. After all, she'd been laying that groundwork for months. No, I needed more than just photos of documents. I needed irrefutable evidence, and I needed to protect what little I had left. The ring. Henry's grandmother's ring that now felt like both a treasure and a burden on my finger. I needed to hide it somewhere Amanda would never think to look. But where? She had access to every inch of this house. My house, though no longer in my name. I slipped the ring off, holding it up to the light. The diamonds caught the glow of my bedside lamp, throwing fractured rainbows across the wall. This ring had survived world wars, the Great Depression, countless family crises. It had passed from mother to son to wife for generations, and now it was all I had left of Henry that Amanda hadn't yet taken from me. I thought of Mr. Abernathy, the jeweler who had inadvertently opened my eyes. Could I trust him with this treasure? Would it be safer in his vault than in my home? But how would I get back to his shop without Amanda knowing? The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I called a cab. Using the emergency credit card Amanda didn't know I still had, I arranged for transportation to the bank. Not our regular bank, which Amanda monitored, but a small local credit union where Henry and I had once kept a Christmas savings account. The young woman at the desk looked skeptical when I asked to open a safe deposit box. "Do you have an account with us, Mrs. Wilson?" I did, years ago. I'd like to open a new one. More forms, more signatures. I was acutely aware of time passing, knowing Amanda might call at any moment to check on me. Finally, I was led to a small private room with a metal box. I placed the ring inside, along with the photos I'd taken of the financial documents, and a handwritten letter explaining what I believed was happening, in case anything should happen to me. As I handed the box back to be secured in the vault, I felt both relief and a profound sadness. My most treasured possession was now locked away, safe from Amanda but also from me. Just like my sense of security, my trust in my family, my belief in the world as a fundamentally just place. On the cab ride home, I stared out at the familiar streets of Winchester, seeing them with new eyes. The colonial houses with their perfect lawns, the playgrounds where my children had once swung and slid, the high school where Henry had taught for 30 years. Everything looked the same, yet everything had changed. The facade of my life had been shattered, revealing the rot beneath. But as the cab pulled up to my house, not mine anymore, I reminded myself bitterly. I made a silent vow. This was not the end of my story. Amanda had underestimated me, just as she had underestimated the value of Henry's ring, and that would be her undoing. When Henry and I first met in 1978, I was working as a library assistant at Boston University, shelving books in the quiet stacks of Mugar Memorial Library. He was a graduate student in history, always requesting obscure volumes about the Civil War. I noticed him because he was the only person who ever thanked me for finding the books he needed. Such a simple thing, gratitude, but it caught my attention. He asked me to coffee after the third time I helped him, his voice slightly nervous, his glasses sliding down his nose in a way I found endearing. That coffee led to dinner, which led to walks along the Charles River, which led to 42 years of marriage. We were married in my parents' backyard in Concord. Nothing fancy. I wore my mother's dress, slightly altered to fit my taller frame. Henry wore a suit he'd saved for months to buy. We honeymooned in Cape Cod, staying at a bed and breakfast that offered a discount for teachers. Our first apartment was tiny, a one-bedroom in Somerville with pipes that clanged all night, and a landlord who took weeks to fix anything. But we filled it with books and plants and love. Henry would grade papers at the kitchen table while I read beside him, our legs tangled together under the table. We didn't need much because we had each other. When I became pregnant with Michael, we saved every penny for a down payment on a house. My parents helped a little, and Henry took on extra summer teaching jobs. By the time Michael was born, we had enough for a modest home in Winchester, the very home Amanda now legally owned. I remember the day we moved in, Henry carrying baby Michael in one arm and a box of books in the other. "Welcome home, Wilsons," he'd said, kissing my forehead as we stood in the empty living room, empty of furniture, but full of promise. Amanda came 3 years later, a fussy baby who grew into a strong-willed child. Henry adored her, called her his little firecracker. She had his dark hair and my green eyes, and a determination that both impressed and exhausted us. When she decided at age 6 that she wanted to learn piano, she practiced with a focus unusual in a child so young. "She'll be something special," Henry would say proudly as we listened to her play the same scales over and over. Our Amanda knows what she wants. What she wanted changed over the years, from pianist to veterinarian to doctor to business executive, but that core determination remained. While Michael was content with B's and the occasional C, happy to spend his weekends playing basketball with friends, Amanda pushed herself relentlessly for straight A's, for first chair in orchestra, for captain of the debate team. We supported both children equally, attending Michael's basketball games with the same enthusiasm as Amanda's recitals. We helped pay for Michael's education at Washington State and Amanda's at Boston College. We celebrated Michael's decision to become a teacher like his father, and Amanda's climb up the corporate ladder. But there were signs looking back that I should have noticed. The way Amanda would calculate the cost of gifts, always ensuring she wasn't giving more than she received. The carefully maintained ledger of loans between us. The $500 we lent her for car repairs in her 20s. The $1,000 for a security deposit on her first apartment. All paid back to the penny, with no room for the generosity that normally flows between parents and children. There was the time Henry was hospitalized with pneumonia when the children were teenagers. Michael stayed home from school to help me, making simple dinners, doing laundry, sitting with me in the hospital waiting room. Amanda came for brief visits, always with an excuse about homework or extracurricular activities that couldn't be missed. Or the Christmas when Michael flew home with his new girlfriend, now his wife, and Amanda spent the entire holiday subtly undermining the young woman, questioning her career choices, her family background, her suitability for our family. "She just wants the best for her brother," Henry had said when I mentioned it later. Always seeing the best in everyone. My Henry. When Michael married Stephanie, Amanda sent an expensive gift, but claimed a work emergency prevented her attendance. She did make it to the hospital when each of their 3 children was born, staying just long enough for photos before flying back to Boston with promises to visit soon, promises rarely kept. Henry never saw these patterns, Or if he did, he chose not to acknowledge them. "The kids are just different," he'd say. "Michael's like you, a natural nurturer. Amanda's more independent, like my mother was." Independence was one thing. Calculation was another. But I kept my concerns to myself, not wanting to come between Henry and the daughter he adored. When Henry was diagnosed with cancer, both children reacted in character. Michael flew in immediately, took family leave from his teaching job, brought his wife and kids for what we all knew might be their last chance to spend time with Grandpa. He sat with Henry for hours, listening to stories he'd heard a dozen times before, helping him record some memories for the grandchildren when they got older. Amanda was present but distant, handling practical matters with efficiency, but rarely sitting still long enough for real conversation. She managed appointments, organized medications, researched treatment options, all valuable, necessary things. But she rarely held her father's hand, rarely reminisced about happy times, rarely allowed herself to be emotionally present for the hard, holy work of saying goodbye. "She's just protecting herself," Henry said one night after she'd left, having spent the evening reorganizing our medication cabinet instead of joining us for the family dinner Michael had prepared. "This is hard for her. It's hard for all of us," I replied, more sharply than I intended. Henry reached for my hand, his grip weaker than it had been even a week before. "Ellie, promise me you'll be patient with her. After I'm gone, she's going to need you, even if she doesn't know it yet." I promised, of course. I would have promised Henry anything in those final weeks. And I meant it. After he died, I reached out to Amanda again and again, inviting her for dinners, suggesting we look through family photos together, offering to help her process her grief. Her responses were always polite, but distant. "I'm really busy with work right now, Mom. I'm not ready to go through Dad's things yet. I'll call you next week." Until suddenly, she was there all the time, offering to help with everything, taking control of my life with a swiftness that, in my grief-fogged state, I mistook for love. The night before Henry died, he had a moment of startling lucidity after days of morphine-induced confusion. He squeezed my hand and said, "Take care of yourself, Ellie. Promise me." At the time, I thought he was just expressing the usual concern of a husband for the wife he was leaving behind. Now, I wondered if he had seen something I hadn't, if perhaps he had recognized in Amanda something that his love for her had previously blinded him to. Had he known what she might do? Had he been trying to warn me? I would never know. But as I sat in what was now legally Amanda's house, surrounded by the ghosts of missing furniture and artwork, I made a new promise to Henry's memory. I would take care of myself. I would fight for the life and home we had built together. I would not let Amanda destroy everything we had worked for, everything we had meant to pass on to both our children and their children after them. And perhaps most difficult of all, I would try to understand how the little girl who had once climbed into our bed during thunderstorms had become a woman who could systematically dismantle her mother's life without apparent remorse, because despite everything, she was still my daughter. Still, the baby Henry and I had brought home to this very house. Still the child we had raised with love and care and the best intentions. Something had gone terribly wrong, and before this was over, I needed to understand what that something was. 3 days after my secret trip to the credit union, Amanda arrived unannounced, something she'd been doing more frequently. I was in the garden, tending to the roses Henry had planted for our 30th anniversary, when her Mercedes pulled into the driveway. She stepped out wearing an expensive-looking suit, her hair perfectly styled, her face set in what I was beginning to recognize as her handling mother expression. "Mom," she called, walking across the lawn in heels that sank slightly into the soft ground. "What are you doing out here without a hat? You'll get sunstroke." I straightened, brushing dirt from my gardening gloves. "I've been gardening for 50 years, Amanda. I know when I need a hat." Something flickered across her face, annoyance perhaps at my small rebellion, before her practiced smile returned. "I brought some people to meet you. They're very interested in the house." "The house?" I repeated, my heart suddenly pounding. "What do you mean? Remember? We talked about this last week, about how this place is too much for you to manage." She took my arm, guiding me toward the front door as if I were an invalid. "The Richardsons are very nice. They have 2 children who would love growing up here." I had no memory of any such conversation because it had never happened. Another lie in Amanda's growing collection. But before I could protest, a couple emerged from a second car that had pulled up behind Amanda's. They looked to be in their 30s. dressed in the casual, expensive style of young professionals. The woman smiled warmly at me. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm Jennifer Richardson. We're so excited to see your beautiful home. Amanda has told us so much about it." I looked from her friendly face to my daughter's warning one. The message was clear. Don't make a scene. I was supposed to play along with whatever story Amanda had concocted. "Why don't you show them around, Amanda?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to clean up from gardening." "Perfect," Amanda said brightly. "Mom, why don't you make some coffee while I give them the tour?" I nodded, my mind racing as I went inside. She was selling my house. Not just transferring it to her name for tax purposes, but actually selling it out from under me. Where did she expect me to go? What was her plan for me? In the kitchen, I mechanically prepared coffee, listening to Amanda's voice as she led the couple through the rooms of my home. Original hardwood floors, recently updated bathroom, breakfast nook gets beautiful morning light. My hands shook as I filled the coffee pot. I had to get control of myself. I couldn't let Amanda see how desperate I felt. I needed to think, to plan. The tour lasted about 20 minutes before they all came to the kitchen. The couple accepted coffee, making polite conversation about the neighborhood, the schools, the convenient commute to Boston. "When would the house be available?" Jennifer asked, looking at Amanda rather than me. "We're thinking by the end of next month," Amanda replied smoothly. "Mom's moving to Sunny Pines. It's a wonderful assisted living facility in Lexington. She's really looking forward to it, aren't you, Mom?" All eyes turned to me. My cup rattled against its saucer as I set it down. Sunny Pines. I'd never heard of it. Never discussed moving anywhere, let alone to an assisted living facility. I began, but Amanda quickly interjected. She's a bit emotional about the move, naturally. 40 years in one place. So many memories. But it's for the best, isn't it, Mom? No more stairs to worry about. No more maintenance. And there are so many activities there. And people your own age. The Richardsons nodded sympathetically. "Change is hard," Jennifer said kindly. "But it sounds lovely." I managed to nod, afraid if I spoke I would scream. Or worse, cry in front of these strangers who wanted to buy the home where I had raised my children, where I had nursed my husband through his final days, where every corner held memories I couldn't bear to lose. "Could we see the backyard?" David Richardson asked. "Of course," Amanda said. "Mom, why don't you rest while I show them around outside? You look a little tired." I didn't argue. As soon as they were out the door, I rushed to Henry's study and quickly searched Amanda's purse, which she'd left on the desk. Inside, I found a brochure for Sunny Pines Assisted Living, glossy photos of smiling seniors playing bingo, eating in a cafeteria-style dining room, sitting in identical small apartments, and paperwork. Admission paperwork with my name on it, already filled out, with a move-in date less than a month away. There was more. A medical assessment I'd never undergone, signed by a doctor I didn't recognize, stating that I was exhibiting early signs of cognitive decline and would benefit from a structured environment with 24-hour supervision. The room spun around me. She was having me declared incompetent. She was going to lock me away in a facility and sell my home, take my money, my possessions, my freedom. I heard the back door open and hastily shoved the papers back into her purse, my hands trembling so badly I could barely manage it. By the time they returned to the kitchen, I was sitting at the table, my face composed into what I hoped was a neutral expression. "The garden is beautiful," Jennifer said. "You must have put so much work into it." "My husband did most of it," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "He loved working outside." "Well, we would certainly take good care of it," David assured me. "We both enjoy gardening." I nodded, unable to speak further. These nice young people had no idea they were participating in my daughter's scheme to erase me from my own life. After they left, with promises to be in touch about making an offer, Amanda turned to me, her smile fading. "You could have been more enthusiastic, Mom. They're perfect for this place." "When were you going to tell me?" I asked quietly. "Tell you what? That you're moving me to Sunny Pines, that you've already filled out the paperwork, that you've had some doctor I've never met declare me incompetent." She stiffened. "You went through my purse? See? This is exactly why we need to make this change. You're becoming paranoid, Mom. Invasive of my privacy. These are concerning behaviors." "Stop it," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Stop lying to me. Stop pretending this is about my well-being when it's about getting your hands on this house, On whatever money I have left that you haven't already taken." Her face changed then, the caring daughter mask slipping to reveal something cold underneath. "What are you talking about? I've been taking care of you, sacrificing my time, my energy, while systematically emptying my bank accounts, selling my possessions, lying to me about my own home. You signed the house over to me," she countered. "Legally, it's mine to sell, because you lied about why I needed to do that. You said it was for tax purposes, not so you could sell it out from under me." "You're becoming hysterical," Amanda said, her voice deliberately calm, reasonable, the voice one uses with a child or a mental patient. "This is exactly why you need more supervision than I can provide." The doctor agrees. "What doctor?" "I've never seen this doctor." "Because you refused to go when I scheduled the appointment. I had to describe your symptoms to him. The paranoia, the confusion, the memory lapses." "There are no memory lapses," I shouted, finally losing control. "There never were. You've been gaslighting me for months, moving things, telling me I've forgotten conversations we never had, making me think I was losing my mind when all along you were just setting this up." Amanda took a step back, her expression hardening. "Listen to yourself, Mom. You sound delusional. This is exactly what I've been worried about." "Get out," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Get out of my house." "It's not your house anymore," she replied coldly. "And if you don't cooperate with this move, I'll have you committed for psychiatric evaluation. The paperwork is already prepared." The threat hung in the air between us. My own daughter, threatening to have me locked in a psychiatric ward if I didn't quietly allow her to ship me off to an assisted living facility while she sold my home and pocketed the proceeds. I stared at her, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, and felt something inside me break. Not my spirit. That was still intact somehow, but the last threads of the illusion that somewhere inside this calculating woman was the child I had raised. "I'd like you to leave now," I said quietly. "I need some time to process this." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Fine, I'll give you some space. But the Richardsons are serious buyers, Mom. This is happening. Sunny Pines has a spot reserved for you starting June 1st. I'll be back tomorrow to start packing your personal items." After she left, I sat motionless at the kitchen table, listening to the familiar sounds of my home, the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of the old floors settling. Soon, these sounds would belong to strangers, and I would be in some sterile room at Sunny Pines, with nothing but a few personal items Amanda deemed worth keeping. Unless I found a way to stop her, unless I fought back. I reached for the phone, then hesitated. Who could I call? What could I say? That my daughter was stealing from me, that she'd manipulated me into signing away my house, that she was having me declared incompetent? Without proof, it would be my word against hers, and she had already laid the groundwork to make me appear confused, paranoid, unstable. As the afternoon light faded, I remained at the kitchen table, tears finally coming as I faced the full horror of my situation. I was alone in a battle against my own child, a battle for my freedom, my dignity, my very identity. But as darkness fell, something else rose within me, a quiet, steely resolve, a determination that neither Amanda nor anyone else would define who I was or what I was capable of. I would not go quietly to Sunny Pines. I would not surrender the life Henry and I had built together. I would find a way to fight back, to reclaim what was mine. Tomorrow, I would begin. Dawn found me still awake, sitting in Henry's old armchair in our bedroom. My bedroom now. I'd spent the night thinking, planning, remembering. The fog of grief and medication that had clouded my mind for so long had finally cleared, burned away by the searing reality of Amanda's betrayal. "Take care of yourself, Ellie," Henry had said. Now I understood what he meant. It was time to fight. I started with the medication, the pills Amanda insisted I needed for anxiety that left me fuzzy and compliant. I hadn't taken them for 3 days now, and my mind felt sharper than it had in months. I flushed the remaining pills down the toilet, watching them swirl away. Next, I needed allies. Amanda had systematically isolated me from friends and family, portraying me as increasingly confused and frail. I needed to reconnect, carefully, with people who knew the real me. I started with Margaret Chen, my closest friend from the library, who had called less and less as I repeatedly declined her invitations. Using the landline rather than the cell phone Amanda monitored, I dialed her number, praying she would answer. "Ellie?" Her voice was warm with surprise. "It's been ages." "I know, Mags. I'm sorry." My voice broke slightly. It's been difficult." "Oh, honey, of course it has. Losing Henry, adjusting to life alone. But you know I'm here, whatever you need." "Actually," I said carefully, "I was hoping we could have coffee. Maybe today?" "Today? Of course. My schedule is clear. I could pick you up around 10? That would be perfect. And Mags, could you not mention this to Amanda if she calls you? I'd like this to be just us, like old times." There was a slight pause. "Of course, Ellie, just us." Margaret arrived precisely at 10, her silver hair cut in a stylish bob, her eyes widening slightly as she took in my appearance. I'd dressed carefully in clothes Amanda hadn't yet donated. A blue blouse Henry always liked, slacks, a touch of lipstick. "You look wonderful," Margaret said, hugging me tightly. "It's so good to see you up and about." In the safety of her car, away from my house where I constantly feared Amanda might have hidden cameras or listening devices, I began to tell her everything. The gradual isolation, the financial manipulation, the house transfer, the plans for Sunny Pines. Margaret listened without interrupting, her hands tightening on the steering wheel as my story unfolded. Ellie, that's elder abuse," she said finally, her voice tight with anger. "Criminal elder abuse." The words hung in the air. Elder abuse. It sounded like something that happened to other people, vulnerable strangers, not to me. But that was exactly what it was. "I need help, Mags, but I don't know where to turn. Amanda has been so careful. She has paperwork, doctor's statements. She's told everyone I'm confused, forgetful. Who would believe me over her?" Margaret pulled into the parking lot of a small cafe far from Winchester, where we were unlikely to run into anyone who knew us. "I believe you. And I know others who will too. Henry's old colleagues, our friends from the library. But first we need to get you legal help." Over coffee, Margaret outlined a plan. Her son-in-law was an attorney specializing in elder law. She would arrange a meeting, somewhere Amanda wouldn't know about. In the meantime, I needed to gather whatever evidence I could. Financial statements, property documents, anything that showed what Amanda had been doing. "And you need a safe place to stay," Margaret added, her face grave. "If she's planning to move you to Sunny Pines in less than a month, you're not safe in that house." "I can't just leave," I protested. "Everything I have is there. Everything Henry and I built together. Material things can be replaced, Ellie. Your freedom can't." She was right, of course. But the thought of abandoning my home, of slipping away like a thief in the night, felt like another victory for Amanda. Still, I knew Margaret was right. I wasn't safe. "I could stay with Michael in Seattle," I said slowly. "Amanda would never expect that. She thinks I'm too frail to travel." Margaret nodded. "Perfect. I'll help you arrange it. But we need to be careful. Amanda can't know until you're gone." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't alone anymore. I had an ally, a plan, a path forward. The next few days were a careful dance of preparation and deception. While pretending to accept the inevitable move to Sunny Pines, I secretly met with Edward Kim, Margaret's son-in-law. In his downtown Boston office, surrounded by law books and certificates, I told my story again, showing him the photos I'd taken of Amanda's documents. "This is a clear case of undue influence and financial exploitation," Edward said, his voice professionally calm, though his eyes reflected anger. "We can file for an emergency injunction to halt the sale of your house, and petition to have the property transfer reversed on grounds of misrepresentation and coercion." "Will that work?" I asked. "It's going to be a fight," he admitted. "Amanda has been methodical. The fact that you have a doctor's assessment claiming cognitive decline complicates things, even though you never met this doctor. But we have options. And the most important thing right now is to get you somewhere safe." Michael was shocked when I called him from Margaret's house, using her phone to avoid Amanda's monitoring. "Mom? What's going on? Are you okay?" I told him everything, my heart breaking as I heard his confusion turn to horror and then to rage. "I'm coming to get you," he said immediately. "I'll be on the next flight." "No," I countered. "Amanda can't know anything is wrong. If you suddenly show up, she'll be suspicious. We need to be smarter than that." After much discussion, we developed a plan. Michael would send me a formal invitation to his oldest son's middle school graduation, a real event that was actually happening. I would show this to Amanda, telling her I wanted to go. She would resist, of course, citing my frailty and the stress of travel. "That's when you play your trump card," Michael said. "Tell her that if she doesn't let you come, you'll call me and tell me why. Tell her you'll expose what she's been doing." "She'll never let me go," I said doubtfully. "She will if she thinks it's the easier option. If she thinks you'll cause more trouble by staying and reaching out to me than by going to Seattle for a week. And once you're here, Mom, you're staying. We'll fight her from here, where she can't threaten or manipulate you." The plan worked better than I could have hoped. When I showed Amanda the invitation from Michael, her reaction was predictable. "Mom, you can't possibly travel across the country alone. Not in your condition." "What condition is that exactly?" I asked innocently. She gave me a look that mixed pity with exasperation. "You know you've been having memory issues. The confusion, the paranoia. Flying alone would be extremely stressful for you." "Then you could come with me," I suggested, knowing she would refuse. "I have important meetings that week. The house closing, for one thing." "Ah, yes, the house. My house that you're selling without my real consent." I kept my voice mild, watching her face harden. "I think Michael would be very interested to hear about that, and about Sunny Pines, and about the doctor I've never met who's declared me incompetent." "Are you threatening me?" Amanda asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "I'm simply saying that if I can't go to my grandson's graduation, I'll have to explain to Michael why, in detail. I may be old, Amanda, but I can still dial a phone." I could almost see the calculations running behind her eyes. If she prevented me from going, I might indeed call Michael, complicating her plans. But if she let me go, she'd have a week without me underfoot to continue her arrangements. And surely I would return. Where else could I go? My house was being sold, my money was largely gone, and I was a confused old woman who couldn't possibly start over. Or so she thought. "Fine," she said eventually. "I'll book your flight. But I'm arranging for assistance at both airports. You can't be wandering around alone." "Whatever you think is best, dear," I said meekly. And so it was arranged. Amanda booked my flight, arranged for wheelchair assistance I didn't need, and even packed my suitcase, limiting me to just the essentials, since I would only be gone a week. Little did she know that in my purse, carefully hidden, were copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. The business card of a lawyer she didn't know I'd met, and the key to a safe deposit box containing Henry's grandmother's priceless ring. The ring she still believed was worthless costume jewelry I'd sold for a pittance. The morning of my flight, Amanda drove me to Logan Airport, giving me instructions as if I were a child taking my first trip alone. "Michael will meet you at the gate in Seattle. Don't try to navigate the airport yourself. Stay in the wheelchair. Keep your phone on at all times so I can check on you. And remember to take your medication." "Yes, dear," I said, the perfect picture of a compliant elderly mother. As she pulled up to the departure terminal, she leaned over to give me a perfunctory kiss on the cheek. "Have a good trip, Mom. I'll see you next Saturday when you get back." I looked at my daughter, perhaps for the last time, and felt a complex swirl of emotions. Anger, betrayal, grief, and beneath it all, a lingering love that refused to die completely, despite everything she'd done. "Goodbye, Amanda," I said softly, meaning much more than she could understand. As the airport attendant helped me from the car and placed me in a wheelchair I didn't need, I didn't look back. Instead, I looked forward, toward Seattle, toward Michael and his family, toward the beginning of my fight to reclaim my life. The old Eleanor Wilson, the grieving widow, the compliant mother, the victim, stayed behind in that car with Amanda. The woman who boarded the plane to Seattle was someone new, someone stronger, someone Henry would have been proud of. Michael was waiting at the arrival gate in Seattle, his face breaking into a smile when he saw me. I dismissed the wheelchair attendant as soon as Amanda was out of sight, walking on my own power to embrace my son. "Mom," he whispered, hugging me tightly. "I've been so worried." "I'm here now," I said, feeling safe for the first time in months. "And I'm not going back." Michael's home in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle was everything Amanda had implied my house in Winchester was not. Warm, welcoming, alive. His wife Stephanie greeted me with a fierce hug that brought tears to my eyes. My 3 grandchildren, Jason, whose graduation had provided my escape, 16-year-old Lily, and 12-year-old Thomas, crowded around, asking questions about my flight, offering to carry my single, small suitcase. "We've set up the guest room for you, Mom," Stephanie said, "but we can convert Michael's office into a more permanent bedroom if you decide to stay longer." "If?" Michael said, his arms still around my shoulders protectively. "She's not going back there, Steph. Not ever." That night, after the children had gone to bed, I sat with Michael and Stephanie in their cozy living room, the Seattle skyline visible through the windows, and told them everything. Not the abbreviated version I'd shared on the phone, but every painful detail of Amanda's manipulation and betrayal. Michael's face darkened with each revelation, his hands clenching into fists. Stephanie moved to sit beside me on the couch, holding my hand as I described the plans for Sunny Pines, the doctor's assessment I'd never received, the house sale that was nearly complete. "I'll kill her," Michael said when I finished, his voice tight with fury. "My own sister. How could she do this to you? To Dad's memory?" "Michael," Stephanie warned, gesturing toward me. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said immediately, "but this is criminal. She needs to face consequences." "And she will," I assured him. "But we need to be careful. Amanda has been very thorough. She has documents, medical opinions. She's told everyone I'm confused, unstable. We need more than just my word against hers." "We have the photos you took," Stephanie pointed out, "and Margaret as a witness to your mental clarity. It's a start," I acknowledged. "But we need more if we're going to fight this legally, and we need to move quickly before the house sale is finalized." The next morning, while Michael was at school, it was the week before finals and he couldn't take time off, Stephanie took me to meet with a lawyer colleague of hers who specialized in elder law and financial abuse. Diane Washington listened carefully to my story, examining the evidence I'd brought, her expression growing more serious with each document. "Mrs. Wilson, what your daughter has done constitutes elder abuse, fraud, and possibly criminal conversion of assets," she said when I finished. "We can certainly fight this, but as you said, Amanda has been methodical in creating a paper trail that portrays you as cognitively impaired." "What do we need?" I asked. "Ideally, a comprehensive cognitive assessment from a reputable geriatric specialist, demonstrating your mental competence, bank records showing the systematic withdrawal of funds, testimony from friends and family who can attest to your mental clarity, and most importantly, evidence that Amanda deliberately misled you about the property transfer and acted against your interest while having fiduciary responsibility." The task seemed overwhelming. How could I, thousands of miles away, access bank records Amanda controlled? How could I prove she had deliberately deceived me? The house transfer document had my signature after all. I had agreed to it, even if under false pretenses. "I don't know if I have all that," I admitted, feeling defeated. Diane leaned forward, her expression determined. "Mrs. Wilson, don't give up before we've begun. Your daughter may have been methodical, but people who commit this kind of abuse almost always make mistakes. They get overconfident, and there's one thing they never expect." "What's that?" "For their victims to fight back." Over the next few days, a plan took shape. Diane would file for an emergency injunction to halt the sale of my house, based on allegations of undue influence and elder abuse. This would at least buy us time. Meanwhile, I would undergo a thorough cognitive assessment with a respected geriatric neurologist who was a colleague of Stephanie's at the University Medical Center. Michael, using a personal day, flew to Boston for 24 hours to meet with Margaret and Edward Kim. Together, they would gather whatever financial records they could access and interview friends and neighbors who might have witnessed Amanda's increasing control over my life. While they worked, I tried to settle into life in Seattle, helping Stephanie prepare for Jason's graduation, reading with Thomas, shopping with Lily. But my heart was heavy with the knowledge that my own daughter had tried to erase me from existence, to discard me like an inconvenient object, rather than a mother who had loved her for 38 years. I keep asking myself where I went wrong. I confessed to Stephanie one evening as we chopped vegetables for dinner. What did I do to make Amanda turn out this way? Stephanie put down her knife, turning to face me. "Ellie, this isn't your fault. Some people are just broken in ways that have nothing to do with how they were raised. You and Henry gave her the same love and opportunities you gave Michael. She made her own choices. I wanted to believe her, but the guilt lingered. Had there been signs I missed? Moments when I could have intervened, could have helped Amanda develop the empathy and moral compass she seemed to lack? 4 days after my arrival in Seattle, Michael returned from Boston with news. Edward Kim had succeeded in getting an emergency injunction to halt the sale of my house, citing serious concerns about the circumstances surrounding the property transfer. Amanda had been served with legal papers and was, according to Margaret, who had driven past the house, in a state of absolute fury. "She's been calling your cell phone nonstop," Michael reported, "demanding to know where you are, when you're coming back. She even called me, accusing me of kidnapping you." "What did you tell her?" I asked, my stomach tight with anxiety. "That you're an adult who can make her own decisions, and that you've decided to extend your visit with us. That's all she needs to know right now." But the biggest news came from Margaret, who had made a discovery that changed everything. After meeting with Edward Kim, she had gone to visit our old friend Harold Jenkins, who had been the executor of Henry's will. Harold, now retired and battling cancer himself, had been shocked to hear what Amanda had been doing. "The thing is," Michael explained, his eyes bright with vindication, "Dad didn't just leave his personal possessions in his will. He left specific instructions about the house and about his grandmother's ring." My heart skipped. "What instructions?" "The house was to remain in your name until your death, at which point it would be sold, and the proceeds divided equally between Amanda and me. And the ring, Dad knew exactly what it was worth, Mom. It wasn't just a family heirloom. It was a documented historical piece that had been appraised years ago." I stared at him, stunned. Henry knew the ring's value, but he never told me. "According to Harold, Dad planned to tell you after your 35th anniversary, but then he got sick, and it must have slipped his mind in those final months." "But what does this mean for us legally?" Stephanie asked. "It means," Michael said with grim satisfaction, "that we have proof Amanda deliberately concealed Dad's will from Mom, and that she deliberately lied about the ring's value. Harold still has copies of all the documentation, including the appraisal certificate for the ring from 2019. It was valued at $165,000 then. It was the break we needed. Proof that Amanda had deliberately deceived me, had concealed Henry's will, had known exactly what she was doing when she told me the ring was worthless costume jewelry. Harold's testimony and the documentation he provided would be powerful evidence of Amanda's intent to defraud. When I spoke with Diane Washington later that day, she was cautiously optimistic. "This changes things significantly," she said. "Concealing a will is a serious offense, and if we can prove she knew about the ring's value and deliberately misled you, that establishes a pattern of deceptive behavior that strengthens our case considerably." The next day, I received an email from Edward Kim. Amanda had responded to the injunction through her own attorney, claiming that I was suffering from dementia and had been manipulated by Michael into making false accusations. She was petitioning for an emergency guardianship hearing, seeking to have herself named as my legal guardian based on the doctor's assessment she had obtained. "She's escalating," Diane warned when I called her. "This is actually good news. It means she's worried, and she's making mistakes. The more aggressive she becomes, the more clearly a judge will see what's really happening here." But I felt sick at the thought of a court battle with my own daughter, a public airing of our family's most painful secrets. "Isn't there any other way?" I asked. "Some way to make her understand the damage she's doing, not just to me but to herself." Diane's voice was gentle but firm. "Mrs. Wilson, people who engage in this kind of exploitation rarely have moments of remorse or clarity. They believe they're entitled to what they're taking. The only language they understand is consequences." That night, unable to sleep, I sat in the window seat of the guest room, looking out at the Seattle skyline. The Space Needle was lit up against the night sky, so different from the tree-lined streets of Winchester I had called home for 40 years. I thought of Henry, of the life we had built together, of the children we had raised. "What would you do?" I whispered to his memory. "How would you handle this?" And then I remembered something. A small, seemingly insignificant detail from one of our final conversations before the morphine made coherent communication impossible. "Ellie," Henry had said, his voice weak but his eyes sharp with urgency. "The blue box in my study, under the loose floorboard by the window. Don't forget." I had nodded, assuming it was the morphine talking. Henry had never mentioned a blue box or a loose floorboard before. But what if it wasn't the medication? What if it was one last attempt to protect me? I grabbed my phone, checking the time. It was 2 a.m. in Seattle, 5 a.m. in Boston. Margaret would be asleep. But this couldn't wait. To my surprise, she answered on the second ring, her voice alert. "Ellie? Is everything okay?" "I'm sorry to call so early," I apologized. "But I just remembered something Henry told me before he died, and I need your help." I explained about the blue box, the loose floorboard. Margaret listened without interrupting. "I'll go check," she said when I finished. "I still have the spare key you gave me years ago. Amanda never asked for it back. Be careful," I warned. "If she catches you in the house..." "She won't," Margaret assured me. "I'll go at lunch when she's at work. Don't worry, Ellie. If there's something there, I'll find it." The hours until Margaret's call were some of the longest of my life. I tried to distract myself by helping Stephanie prepare for Jason's graduation party, but my mind kept returning to that mysterious blue box. What could Henry have left there? What secret had he been keeping? Finally, at 2 p.m. Seattle time, my phone rang. Margaret's name flashed on the screen. "I found it," she said without preamble, her voice tight with excitement. "Ellie, you're not going to believe what was in that box." The blue box contained a detailed letter from Henry, dated just weeks before his death, laying out his concerns about Amanda's behavior toward me and our finances. Along with the letter was a USB drive containing years of financial records, copies of our wills, insurance policies, property deeds, and, most damning of all, a video Henry had recorded in his final weeks. "He looks terrible in the video," Margaret told me, her voice breaking slightly. "But his mind is completely clear. He says he's worried about Amanda taking advantage after he's gone. He mentioned specific incidents that concerned him, her asking about life insurance payouts while he was still in treatment, suggesting you sell the house to simplify things, even taking some of his personal items before he died, claiming she was organizing for him." I sank onto the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Henry had known. He had seen what I had been blind to, and he had left evidence to protect me if his fears proved justified. "There's more," Margaret continued. "He left detailed instructions about the ring, including its appraisal certificate and provenance documentation. And Ellie, he left a second will with a lawyer in New Hampshire, different from the local one Amanda knew about. It's dated after the one she's been using. In it, he specifically states that if there's any attempt to remove you from your home or access your assets inappropriately, Amanda's inheritance is to be placed in an irrevocable trust that she can't touch until she's 70. It was overwhelming, both the depth of Henry's foresight and the painful confirmation that he had recognized the darkness in our daughter that I had refused to see. "Margaret, this changes everything," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can you get these materials to Edward Kim immediately?" "Already on my way," she assured me. "And Ellie, Henry says in the video that he loves you more than anything, and that he trusts you to be stronger than anyone knows." Tears filled my eyes. Even from beyond the grave, Henry was protecting me, believing in me. Within hours, the legal landscape had shifted dramatically. Edward Kim called an emergency meeting with Michael and me via video conference, his face grim but determined. "This evidence is extraordinary," he said. "The video alone is compelling. A dying man's testimony about his concerns, recorded when he was clearly of sound mind despite his physical condition. The documentation about the ring and the second will are equally powerful. But most damning is the financial tracking Henry did. He documented numerous instances where Amanda attempted to access accounts she shouldn't have had access to, or asked questions about assets that raised red flags for him. "What does this mean for our case?" Michael asked. "It means we move from defense to offense," Edward replied. "Instead of just fighting the guardianship petition, we file a countersuit alleging fraud, concealment of a will, conversion of assets, and elder abuse. We demand an accounting of all funds Amanda has managed since Henry's death, and we seek a constructive trust over any assets she's received or converted." "Will it be enough to stop the guardianship hearing?" I asked, dreading the thought of being declared incompetent in a court of law. "I believe so. With Henry's video testimony about his concerns, combined with your clean cognitive assessment from Seattle, we have strong evidence that Amanda's claims about your mental state are fabricated. The judge would have to ignore compelling evidence to rule in her favor." The next week passed in a blur of legal consultations, document submissions, and strategy sessions. I completed a comprehensive neurological and cognitive assessment at the University of Washington Medical Center. receiving a clean bill of mental health from one of the country's leading geriatric specialists. Michael hired a forensic accountant to analyze the financial records Henry had preserved, tracking the movement of funds since his death. The results were staggering. Nearly $320,000 had been diverted from my accounts to Amanda's over 18 months, through a combination of direct transfers, reimbursements for expenses that were never incurred, and proceeds from selling my possessions. Edward Kim filed our countersuit in Massachusetts probate court, including requests for freezing Amanda's assets and an order compelling her to return all converted funds and property. The court date was set for 2 weeks later. "Will I need to be there?" I asked during one of our video calls with Edward. "Ideally, yes," he replied. "Your testimony will be powerful, and the judge will want to see for himself that you're mentally competent." The thought of facing Amanda in court, of publicly exposing the betrayal that still felt like an open wound, made me physically ill. But I thought of Henry's message, that he trusted me to be stronger than anyone knew, and I straightened my shoulders. "I'll be there," I promised. As the court date approached, Amanda escalated her efforts. She called Michael repeatedly, alternating between threats and tearful pleas. She tried to contact Stephanie at the hospital where she worked. She even called Jason on his cell phone, telling him I was dangerously confused and needed to come home for treatment. "She's desperate," Diane Washington observed when I reported these attempts. "She sees her plan unraveling and she's trying anything to regain control." Amanda's attorney sent a settlement offer 3 days before the hearing. She would drop the guardianship petition if I would agree to a mutually acceptable division of assets and property. There was no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, no apology, not even a recognition that she had taken anything that wasn't hers. "This is insulting," Michael said when Edward forwarded the offer. "She steals over $300,000 from you, tries to have you declared incompetent and shipped off to an assisted living facility, and now she wants a mutually acceptable division? As if she's entitled to anything after what she's done? It's a sign they know they're going to lose," Edward pointed out. "They're looking for a way out that lets Amanda save face and keep at least some of what she took." "We're rejecting it, right?" Michael demanded. Edward looked at me. "That's up to your mother." I thought about it carefully. Part of me, the mother who had held infant Amanda in my arms, who had bandaged her knees and celebrated her triumphs, wanted to find a way to end this without destroying her completely. But another part, the woman who had been systematically victimized, whose grief had been weaponized against her, demanded justice. "Reject it," I said finally, "but send word that I'm willing to discuss a different arrangement after the hearing, one that includes full financial restitution, a public apology, and psychological counseling for Amanda." "You're being more merciful than I would be," Michael muttered. "I'm her mother," I replied simply. "That doesn't go away, even after this." The day before we were to fly to Boston for the hearing, I sat with Stephanie in her garden, helping her plant summer flowers. My hands in the earth reminded me of my own garden in Winchester, of the roses Henry had planted, of the 40 years of memories rooted in that soil. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Stephanie asked gently. "Facing Amanda in court will be brutal." "I don't know if I'm ready," I admitted, "but I know I have to do it. Not just for me, but for Henry, for the truth of who we were as a family, for the legacy he tried to protect." "You're remarkable, Ellie," Stephanie said, squeezing my soil-covered hand with hers. "Most people in your position would be crushed by what's happened. But here you are, fighting back, still finding compassion even after everything she's done." I smiled, thinking of Henry's words, "Stronger than anyone knows." Maybe he had seen something in me that I was only now discovering in myself. That night, as I packed for the journey back to Boston, I took out the one personal item I had managed to bring with me in my hurried escape, a small framed photo of Henry and me on our 40th anniversary, 2 years before his diagnosis. We were standing in our garden, his arm around my waist, both of us laughing at something now forgotten. I traced his face with my finger, remembering the man who had loved me enough to try to protect me even after he was gone. "I'm doing it, Henry," I whispered to his image. "I'm taking care of myself, just like you asked, and I won't let her erase what we built together. Tomorrow I would board a plane back to Boston. Tomorrow I would begin the final phase of reclaiming my life, my home, my dignity. Tomorrow I would face the daughter who had betrayed me, armed with the truth Henry had preserved, and the strength he had always believed I possessed. Amanda had underestimated me, just as she had underestimated the value of Henry's ring, and that mistake would cost her everything she had tried to steal. The courtroom was smaller than I had imagined, wood-paneled and formal with the scent of furniture polish and old books. I sat at a table with Edward, Kim, and Michael, my back straight despite the trembling I couldn't quite control. Across the aisle, Amanda sat with her attorney, a sleek woman in an expensive suit. My daughter wouldn't look at me, her gaze fixed on the papers before her. She looked thinner than when I'd last seen her, her face taut with tension. For a moment, I felt an unwelcome pang of maternal concern. Then I remembered the coldness in her eyes when she had threatened to have me committed if I didn't cooperate with being shipped off to Sunny Pines. Judge Harrington, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, entered the courtroom, and we all rose. As the proceedings began, I forced myself to breathe slowly, to focus on Edward's calm voice as he presented our case. Your Honor, we are here today because Mrs. Eleanor Wilson has been the victim of a systematic campaign of financial exploitation and emotional abuse by her daughter, Amanda Wilson. What makes this case particularly disturbing is the calculated nature of the abuse, which began immediately following the death of Mrs. Wilson's husband, Henry, when she was most vulnerable. Amanda's attorney, Ms. Prescott, objected immediately. Your Honor, this inflammatory language has no place in these proceedings. We are here to determine whether Mrs. Wilson requires a guardianship due to cognitive impairment, not to entertain baseless accusations against the daughter who has been caring for her. Judge Harrington raised a hand. I'll allow Mr. Kim to present his case, Ms. Prescott. You'll have your turn, Edward continued, methodically laying out the evidence we had gathered. The financial records showing the systematic draining of my accounts, the testimony from Margaret and other friends about my isolation, the documentation of my missing possessions, Henry's video testimony, and finally, the results of my cognitive assessment in Seattle. As you can see, Your Honor, Edward concluded, Mrs. Wilson shows no signs of cognitive impairment whatsoever. The only assessment suggesting otherwise was conducted by a doctor who never actually examined Mrs. Wilson, based solely on information provided by Amanda Wilson, who stood to benefit financially from having her mother declared incompetent. Throughout Edward's presentation, I watched Amanda from the corner of my eye. Her expression remained impassive, but I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers gripped her pen too tightly. She knew what was coming. Ms. Prescott's defense was what we had expected, painting me as a grief-stricken widow whose mental state had deteriorated, and Amanda as the devoted daughter who had sacrificed her time and energy to care for me. She challenged the Seattle cognitive assessment as potentially biased due to my son's connection to the medical center. She dismissed Henry's video as the paranoid concerns of a dying man on heavy medication. Mrs. Wilson's behavior speaks for itself, Ms. Prescott argued. Her sudden flight across the country, her refusal to return home, her paranoid accusations against the daughter who has been her primary caregiver, these are not the actions of someone who is thinking rationally. Then it was my turn to testify. As I took the stand and was sworn in, I felt a momentary wave of panic. Amanda was finally looking at me, her eyes cold and challenging. In that gaze, I could find no trace of the little girl I had raised, only a stranger who saw me as an obstacle to be removed. Edward began gently, asking about my life with Henry, our home in Winchester, the circumstances after his death. I answered clearly, my voice growing stronger as I spoke. When did you first begin to suspect that Amanda was taking advantage of you? Edward asked. I took a deep breath and told the story of the jewelry store, of Mr. Abernathy's shocked response to the ring Amanda had claimed was worthless costume jewelry. I described the gradual isolation, the misplaced items, the suggestions that I was becoming forgetful. I explained how I had discovered the Sunny Pines paperwork and the doctor's assessment I had never received. Mrs. Wilson, Edward said, why didn't you confront Amanda directly when you first suspected what was happening? I was afraid, I admitted, the words painful to speak aloud. She had convinced everyone around me that I was confused, possibly even mentally ill. She controlled my finances, my transportation, my communication with others. She had taken legal ownership of my home. I had no power in that situation, and I feared what would happen if I challenged her directly. Ms. Prescott's cross-examination was aggressive, designed to provoke an emotional response that might make me appear unstable. Isn't it true, Mrs. Wilson, that you've had episodes of confusion since your husband's death? Times when you've misplaced items or forgotten appointments? I've experienced normal grief, I replied steadily. And the stress of losing my husband was certainly difficult. But I have not had confusion beyond what anyone might experience during bereavement. The incidents Amanda reported were largely manufactured or exaggerated to create the impression of cognitive decline. So you're claiming your daughter fabricated all of this? That she orchestrated an elaborate scheme to, what? Take your money? When she already has a successful career and financial stability of her own? I looked directly at Amanda as I answered. I don't know why Amanda did what she did. I only know what she did, which is documented in the evidence we've presented. I would like to understand her motives, but understanding them won't change the facts. For a moment, Amanda's mask slipped, and I saw raw anger flash across her face before she composed herself again. After my testimony, the forensic accountant presented his findings, detailing the movement of funds from my accounts to Amanda's. Margaret testified about the changes she had observed in my isolation and Amanda's increasing control. The video of Henry was played, his gaunt face and clear eyes filling the courtroom screen as he outlined his concerns about Amanda's behavior, even before his death. I hope I'm wrong, Henry's recorded voice said, his words precise despite his weakness. I hope Amanda is just being overprotective, overzealous in her desire to help Ellie after I'm gone. But if you're watching this, it means my concerns were justified. Ellie, if you're seeing this, know that I believed in your strength even when you didn't, and know that I tried to protect you the only way I could from where I am now. Tears filled my eyes at Henry's words, at the love that had led him to create this safeguard even as he was dying. Across the aisle, I saw Amanda staring at the screen, her face pale. Finally, it was Amanda's turn to testify. She took the stand with practiced confidence, her testimony well rehearsed. She spoke of her concern after Henry's death, how she had noticed my increasing confusion and forgetfulness. She described her efforts to care for me, the time she had sacrificed, the ways she had tried to protect me from financial mistakes. Everything I did was to help my mother, she insisted, her voice trembling slightly in what I recognized as calculated emotion. After Dad died, she was lost. She couldn't manage on her own. I was trying to make sure she was safe, that her needs were met, that she didn't make decisions she'd regret. Including the decision to keep her own home? Edward asked during cross-examination. To maintain control of her own finances, to keep the possessions she and your father accumulated over 40 years of marriage. Amanda's composure cracked slightly. The house was too much for her to maintain. The finances were overwhelming her. As for the possessions, many of them were just causing her pain, reminding her of Dad. And the ring? Your father's grandmother's ring that you told her was worthless costume jewelry, when you knew from his documentation that it was valued at over $165,000. Was that also causing her pain? I never... Amanda began, then stopped, visibly recalculating. I didn't know the ring was valuable. Dad never told me. Edward approached the bench, requesting permission to enter a new piece of evidence. When the judge agreed, he played a second video clip, one we hadn't seen before. In it, Henry was sitting in his study, clearly earlier in his illness when he was stronger. Amanda and I discussed the ring today, he said to the camera. I showed her the appraisal documentation and explained its history. She seemed very interested in its value, asking if it was insured and where we kept the papers. I'm making this recording to document that conversation just in case. The courtroom was silent as the clip ended. Amanda sat frozen, caught in a direct lie under oath. Her attorney looked stricken. No further questions, Edward said quietly. The judge called a brief recess before closing arguments. In the hallway outside the courtroom, I stood with Michael and Edward, discussing the impact of the surprise video. Where did that come from? I asked Edward. That wasn't on the USB drive. Harold found it later, in a separate folder on Henry's computer, Edward explained. He sent it to me yesterday. I decided not to mention it until it could have maximum impact. Michael squeezed my shoulder. You're doing great, Mom. The judge can see exactly what's been happening. When we returned to the courtroom, I noticed Amanda in intense discussion with her attorney, their heads close together. Ms. Prescott looked frustrated, shaking her head repeatedly at whatever Amanda was saying. The closing arguments were brief. Edward emphasized the clear evidence of exploitation, and the absence of any credible indication of cognitive impairment. Ms. Prescott's closing was notably subdued, focusing on Amanda's good intentions rather than continuing to push the narrative of my mental decline. Judge Harrington listened carefully to both sides, her expression unreadable. When the arguments concluded, she spoke directly to Amanda. "Ms. Wilson, would you like to make a statement before I render my decision?" Amanda hesitated, then stood. For the first time since the hearing began, she looked directly at me, her expression a complex mix of emotions I couldn't fully decipher. She began, then faltered. Her attorney tugged at her sleeve, but Amanda shook her off. The ring was just the beginning. I did know what it was worth. Dad told me, just like he said in the video, and I did lie about it. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Ms. Prescott closed her eyes, clearly recognizing that her client was about to confess against legal advice. "I told myself I deserved it," Amanda continued, her voice hollow. "That I was the one who was there, taking care of things, while Michael was across the country living his perfect life. That Dad always favored him anyway. That Mom had 40 years with Dad, and I had lost him too, and no one seemed to care about my grief." I stared at my daughter, seeing for the first time the wounded child beneath the calculating adult, the pain she had never expressed, the grief she had channeled into resentment and entitlement. "I didn't start out planning to take everything," she said, "but it got easier each time. And Mom was so absent after Dad died, so compliant. It was like she didn't even care what happened anymore. So you took advantage of her grief," Judge Harrington said, her voice neutral but her eyes sharp. Amanda nodded slowly. "Yes, I did. I told myself I was helping her, protecting her, but I was really just taking whatever I could get my hands on." The courtroom was silent as Amanda's confession hung in the air. I felt Michael's hand gripping mine so tightly it hurt, but I couldn't look away from my daughter's face, from the struggle playing out there between defiance and something that might possibly be the beginning of remorse. Judge Harrington didn't need to deliberate further. Her ruling was decisive. The guardianship petition was denied. A forensic audit of all accounts managed by Amanda since Henry's death was ordered. The property transfer was invalidated on grounds of misrepresentation and undue influence, and Amanda was referred to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges. "Mrs. Wilson," the judge said, turning to me, "you have been the victim of a serious breach of trust by someone who should have protected you. I am deeply sorry for what you have endured. Please know that this court sees you, believes you, and recognizes your complete competence to manage your own affairs." As we left the courtroom, Amanda stood alone, her attorney already gathering papers and preparing to depart. Our eyes met briefly across the now empty space between us. What passed between us wasn't forgiveness. That would take more time, more work, more genuine remorse than had yet been shown. But it was an acknowledgement at least, of the truth, finally spoken aloud, of the damage done, of the long road ahead if any healing was ever to be possible. Outside in the bright June sunshine, with Michael's arm around my shoulders and the weight of secrecy and fear finally lifted, I thought again of Henry's words. "I trusted you to be stronger than anyone knows." And I had been, strong enough to recognize the truth, to escape, to fight back, to reclaim my life. Strong enough, perhaps, to eventually find a path toward understanding, if not forgiveness. But that was a journey for another day. 1 year later, I stand in my garden in Winchester, deadheading the roses Henry planted so many years ago. The summer air is heavy with their scent, sweet and familiar. My hands, spotted with age but still nimble, work methodically among the blooms, finding comfort in the ritual. The house around me is both the same and different. After the court ruling, it took months to untangle the financial mess Amanda had created, to restore my legal ownership of my home, to recover what could be recovered of the money and possessions she had taken. Some things were gone forever, sold to strangers, scattered beyond retrieval, but the house itself remained, its walls still holding the echoes of the life Henry and I had built. I've made some changes. With Michael's help, I converted Henry's study into a bright art studio, where I've returned to the watercolor painting I abandoned decades ago, when child-rearing and work took precedence. The formal dining room we rarely used is now a comfortable sitting area, where I host a monthly book club with Margaret and other friends I've reconnected with. Small changes that make the space more fully mine, acknowledging that while I honor Henry's memory, I am creating a new life for myself as well. The criminal charges against Amanda were eventually resolved through a plea agreement. She avoided jail time, but received 3 years of probation, mandatory counseling, and community service. The financial restitution is ongoing, a substantial monthly payment that will continue for years to come. Our relationship remains complicated. After the hearing, Amanda disappeared from my life for several months. No calls, no visits, no acknowledgement of the damage she had caused. When she finally reached out, it was with a formal, carefully worded letter that read more like a legal document than a daughter's apology. Still, it was a beginning. We've met 3 times since then, always in public places, always with clear boundaries established beforehand. She is seeing a therapist, she tells me, working to understand the resentment and entitlement that drove her actions. I want to believe her, but trust, once shattered, reforms slowly, like a fragile crystal growing in darkness. Michael and his family visited last Christmas, filling the old house with noise and laughter for the first time since Henry died. They've invited me to move to Seattle permanently, to buy a small place near them where I could be part of their daily lives. It's a generous offer, one I'm considering for the future. But for now, I need to be here, in the home where my memories live, reclaiming my independence day by day. The ring, Henry's grandmother's ring that started this whole journey of discovery, rests on my finger where it belongs. I wear it now with full knowledge of its value, both monetary and sentimental. Sometimes I catch myself twisting it absently, a habit formed over years of marriage, and I feel Henry's presence like a gentle touch on my shoulder. "You were right," I tell him sometimes in the quiet evenings when I sit alone in the garden. I was stronger than anyone knew, even me. The doorbell rings, interrupting my gardening reverie. I peel off my gloves and make my way through the house, wondering if it's Margaret, who sometimes drops by unannounced with fresh muffins and neighborhood gossip. But it's not Margaret. It's Amanda, standing on the porch with uncertainty in her posture, a tentative smile on her face. She's holding a small wrapped package. "Mom," she says softly, "I should have called first. Is this a bad time?" I hesitate, momentarily transported back to that terrible day when she brought the Richardsons to view my home without warning. But I push the memory aside and open the door wider. "No, it's fine. I was just gardening. Come in." She follows me to the kitchen, where I wash my hands and put on the kettle for tea, an automatic hostess gesture that feels both strange and familiar with her. "You're looking well," she says, sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where we sat the day I confronted her about Sunny Pines, the day everything changed. "I am well," I reply, measuring tea leaves into the pot Henry always liked. "The art classes are good for me, and I've been volunteering at the library again, just a few hours a week." Amanda nods, fidgeting with the package in front of her. "I found something," she says finally. "When I was cleaning out my storage unit, I thought you might want it back." She pushes the package across the table. I unwrap it slowly, carefully, unsure what to expect. Inside is a small leather-bound book, Henry's journal from our first year of marriage. I thought it had been lost in one of our moves decades ago. "Where did you find this?" I ask, running my fingers over the worn cover. "Dad gave it to me before he died," Amanda admits. "He said it was important, that it showed how much he loved you from the very beginning. I think he meant it as a comfort for me to pass on to you after he was gone, but I kept it instead." I opened the journal to a random page, seeing Henry's familiar handwriting. "Ellie fell asleep on the couch tonight while reading, her glasses sliding down her nose. I sat watching her for nearly an hour, wondering how I got so lucky. I hope I never take a single day with her for granted." Tears prick at my eyes. His voice, captured in ink, reaching across time and loss to speak to me again. "Thank you for bringing this back," I say quietly. Amanda nods, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Mom, about Dad, about you, about the kind of daughter I've been, the kind of person I've been." The kettle whistles, giving me a moment to compose myself as I prepare the tea. I set a cup in front of Amanda and take my seat again, cradling my own cup in hands that have held so much: joy and grief, love and betrayal, loss and recovery. "My therapist says I've been angry for a long time," Amanda continues, staring into her tea. "Angry that Dad died. Angry that you withdrew into your grief instead of taking care of mine. Angry that Michael always seemed to be the favorite, The good one. That's not, I begin, but she holds up a hand. I know that's not true. Not objectively, but it's how I felt. And I let that anger justify terrible choices. I told myself I deserved what I was taking, that I was evening the score somehow. I take a sip of tea, considering my response carefully. I wasn't a perfect mother, Amanda. And perhaps I didn't see how much you were hurting after your father died. I was drowning in my own grief. That doesn't excuse what I did, she says firmly. Nothing excuses that. We sit in silence for a moment, the weight of the past year hanging between us. I don't know if you can ever forgive me, Amanda says finally. I'm not sure I would, in your place, but I want you to know that I am sorry, truly sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for the pain I caused you, for betraying your trust, for exploiting your grief. It was unforgivable. I look at my daughter, this complex, damaged woman who carries my blood and Henry's, who once was the baby I cradled and the child whose nightmares I soothed. I see the pain in her eyes, the genuine remorse, the long road of recovery stretching before her. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, Amanda, I say slowly. It's a process, for both of us. I can't promise you that we'll ever have the relationship we might have had. Too much has happened, but I can promise you that I'm willing to try, to see where this path might lead us. It's not the happy ending of reconciliation that part of me longs for. It's not the complete severing of ties that another part of me sometimes thinks would be safer, cleaner. It's messier than either of those options. More complicated, more real. It's an acknowledgement that healing is possible, even if complete restoration may not be. After Amanda leaves, with tentative plans to meet again in a few weeks, I return to the garden with Henry's journal. The afternoon sun filters through the maple trees he planted, dappling the grass with shifting patterns of light and shadow. I sit on the old bench where we used to watch summer sunsets together, and I open the journal to the first page. Today, I married Eleanor Jean Mitchell, Henry wrote on that long-ago day. I cannot imagine ever loving anyone more than I love her in this moment, but something tells me that I will, that each day with her will deepen what I feel until the word love seems too small to contain it. I trace the words with my fingertip, feeling closer to him than I have since his death. The grief is still there. It will always be there, but it's softer now, worn smooth by time like a river stone. Alongside it grows something new, a quiet pride in my own resilience, a deepening appreciation for the friends who stood by me, a cautious hope for whatever comes next. The ring catches the sunlight as I turn the pages of Henry's journal, its diamonds throwing rainbows across the paper. Once, Amanda saw it as just another asset to be converted, its true value hidden from me. She underestimated the ring, just as she underestimated me. That mistake cost her dearly, in ways both tangible and immeasurable. But as I sit in the garden Henry loved, surrounded by the life we created together, I realize that the ring's true worth was never in its monetary value. Its worth lies in the history it carries, the love it represents, and now, the strength it reminds me I possess. The strength to recognize betrayal, to fight for justice, to reclaim what was taken. And perhaps hardest of all, the strength to open myself to the possibility of a new relationship with the daughter who betrayed me, not based on blind trust or the obligation of blood, but on clear-eyed understanding, firm boundaries, and the cautious hope that people can sometimes change. I close the journal and look up at the deepening blue of the evening sky, feeling more at peace than I have in 2 years. Whatever comes next, whether reconciliation with Amanda or a fresh start in Seattle near Michael or something else entirely I haven't yet imagined, I will face it with the quiet confidence Henry always saw in me, even when I couldn't see it in myself, strong enough for whatever lies ahead, strong enough to honor the past without being imprisoned by it, strong enough to create a future of my own choosing on my own terms, just as Henry always knew I would be.